Here.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank
Hi.
you. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview, first of
Oh,
all.
no worries. No worries. Yeah, my
And
pleasure.
great. And if we can just get right into it, I understand that you're the GM for China's Merlin operations.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Can you
Yeah,
just give everyone kind of like an intro to, what is under your purview? So like how many attractions, what kinds of attractions, and you a general job description?
sure. Um, I'm now in charge of the Midway business in China. So right now we have 6 brands in total. They are Madame Tussauds, Legoland Discovery Center, Sea Life, Little Big City, Dungeon, as well as Peppa Pig World of Play. And so far, we've opened 12 attractions in China. They're located in cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Chongqing, Wuhan, as well as Shenyang. So that's basically the situation here.
Mhm.
And also, as some of you know, maybe may know, we're also talking about the Legoland Park, the launch plan in China as well. So overall, right now, the business in China that I'm taking care of is mostly in the Midway attractions.
Okay, understood. And I think the first question that's going to be on everyone's minds is how Merlin is dealing with the current situation. I mean, the COVID situation is different all over the world. So I guess how has it impacted your business in China, and how are you dealing with it?
Oh, sure. Um, so the pandemic in China actually started in January, and unfortunately, all sites closed either before or during the Chinese New Year period. So that was actually a major hit for us. And some sites started reopen in March or April, but recovery back then was very, very slow. And sometimes we only saw like single digit of visitors in early days. That is clear a lack of confidence of going out, or in particularly lack of confidence in terms of visiting an indoor attraction. And after that, Beijing and the other city in China called Dalian actually had a second wave, a small second wave in July. Even though I think we all understand this would potentially be the new normal for us to live up with for a while, but we still see major impact on business, and recovery after the second wave is even slower than the first one. So that's quite a hit as well. But now I think that the situation in China is by and large controlled, with a few new cases every single day. And I think pretty much like 90% of those are actually imported cases. And at the same time, some of the things that the government that very early is also helping. So, for example, the government has been very harsh on layoffs, even during the peak of the crisis. Employment is absolutely priority number one. So this could potentially help the economy quickly get into the recovery mode and see how things ramp up. This also give people a lot of confidence in terms of spending, or they could go on with their more or less normal consumption, so to speak. And I think in the past summer, people are gradually regaining their confidence, and we clearly see early signs of recovery in the past July and August. So individuals, they started to travel. The tour groups yet to come back, or maybe they would never do it in exactly the same way as they used to be.
Mhm.
And clearly, brands driven by local or semi-local recover the fastest, whereas tourist brands, not surprisingly, they are lagging behind. And I mean, with regards to international demand, it might take another like 6 to 12 months to fully recover.
I see. And so, in this recovery period, I think you had mentioned some of these points over the email, but are there new measures that you're taking to, prepare for operations going forward? And I guess what does kind of like a new normal look like for
Midway attractions? Yeah, absolutely. So we did observe a number of we did have a number of observations during this period. So first of all, I think there's clearly evolving customer needs. So they tend to visit outdoor attractions versus indoor in the past. They tend to go to suburb areas instead of visiting city center attractions. And we believe fundamentally this is their basic needs to feel safe. From Merlin's perspective, we always put employee and guest safety as our first priority. So during this period, we established detailed plans for this, covering, for example, the PPE supplies to operational protocol, as well as emergency plans, etc. And our hygiene standards, from the locals' perspective, they were highly spoken of by local authorities. And Merlin attractions are the first batch to be marked as safe to visit on major OTA platforms in China. So I think all these helped a lot. And all these actions that we are taken is also well communicated to the public via various channels. So I think all these ended with, we make customers feel comfortable to visit us.
I see. Okay. And you had mentioned something about like a new product design. Could you speak to that? Is the customer kind of evolving, whether it's because of this virus or just a longer term trend in China? Yeah. How will the attractions evolve going forward?
Right. So I think there is something specifically related to the pandemic period. There is also something we see as the balance between the long established IP as well as being innovative. So the thing that's specifically relevant to this pandemic period is, during the lockdown period, there is new demand specifically for family and kids segment. So for example, during the lockdown, many daycare centers for preschool kids, they were actually gone. And basically kids, they have nowhere to go when their parents have to work. So for example, our Pepper World of Play, they were nimble enough to introduce like multi-entry tickets at affordable price to appeal to the young parents in the nearby neighboring residential community. So that turned out to be very successful and was one of the main drivers delivering the early stage recovery for Pepper. And at the same time, when school were kind of interrupted, we see the increasing demand for the educational or experience-driven product. So under that circumstances, our Legoland Discovery Center also introduced programs like Little Playmaker, Little F&B Manager, so on and so forth to address the demand. And speaking of the long established IP, I think, for example, our Madame Tussauds brand is very well known for famous fun as well as wax figure making heritage. But at the same time, nowadays, celebrities are becoming more and more accessible to the general public. So NT will be gradually losing its pitch if we don't have any change. That said, Madame Tussauds Shanghai recently, we had the crowdfunding marketing campaign together with the celebrity. We offer unique celebrity content, exclusive secondary offer, as well as we used hunger marketing to create FOMO, fear of missing out. So basically with all these, we reached the crowdfunding target within an hour of sale. And then more importantly, we managed to strengthen the bonding between fans, celebrities, as well as MT Shanghai by making things all relevant and meaningful.
That's interesting. So for Madame Tussauds Shanghai, you said this was crowdfunded. Was it crowdfunded to build the attraction, or was it crowdfunding something else?
Well, it's In a sense, it's a crowd-funded marketing campaign.
Oh, okay. Got it. And then what kind of, so the people who participated in that campaign, what did they receive in return for?
Yeah, so we introduced a tiered, like the blind box, the marketing campaign. So not sure if you how much you know about the blind box, which is quite popular in China. So basically, before you open the gift box, you have no idea what is in it. So we leveraged unique celebrity content. We introduced three different styles of his outfit. So we put those mini figures into the blind box. So fans would be quite look forward to that, but before they open the blind box, they don't know what is inside, which style they will be getting. And all the crowdfunding money that we collected will be contributed to the marketing campaign supporting this celebrities side-by-side event.
I see. Okay. Interesting. And right now, you mentioned that Merlin had 12 Midway attractions.
That's right.
Throughout China. Are they in very different regions of China?
Yeah. So we have 5 attractions in Shanghai and 3 attractions in Beijing, 2 in Shenyang, and 1 each in Chongqing and Wuhan. And so I think, so for Beijing and Shanghai, it's obviously, tier 1 cities, relatively higher purchasing power from consumers' perspective. Mm-hmm. However, the competition in those 2 markets would be more intense and more cutting throat. Mm-hmm. And consumers in those 2 cities, they have more choices to choose from when they think about where to go. Whereas in the other 3 cities, Shenyang, Wuhan, Chongqing, they are the tier 2. We do see emergent, demand from people are looking for like IP-driven product as well as experience-driven product. But I think from purchasing power's perspective, there's still gaps versus Beijing and Shanghai. And of course, from competition's perspective, it's still, the difference also exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because, often we think about China as just one homogenous market, but obviously there's a lot of regional difference. So, between those markets that you operate in, do you see any other kind of regional differences in terms of like the operations or people's tastes or like, how people act, guest behavior, anything like that? That's interesting.
I think from the operations perspective, probably the difference is not as huge as the consumer preference from that perspective. So, for example, right now we have 4 Madame Tussauds in China. One of the key things that are on our agenda is how do we differentiate among ourselves, i.e. If one customer has visited MT Shanghai, what is driving him or her to pay another visit to MT Beijing? So I think that's the thing that we are currently working on. So I think Shanghai, maybe there's a label for the city to be as like being modern, being more trendy, more fashion. Whereas for Beijing, the thing that we are trying to build for MT Beijing is more about classic, historical and cultural features, so on and so forth.
I see. And do you think that there is a natural I guess, cap to how big you can expand in China? Like what are Merlin's plans, I guess, in the rest of the markets?
Well, I do think there's a huge untapped demand in China. So and I think Merlin is working on this to see to what extent we could also fully leverage or unlock the full potential. So far we only have attractions in 5 cities in China. and most of them is in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. And I do think there are further untapped demands in tier 2 or even tier 3, tier 4 cities. And I think, as mentioned previously, there's an increasing demand for major IP feature product, as well as the immersive interactive product that we are currently offering. I think that's the main advantage of Merlin, and we should take it to the next level.
I see. So are there plans for any kind of new Midway products that don't exist now, that are specific to China, or that might exist in other places but haven't been brought into China?
Well, as a matter of fact, we are actually going to launch like one of the biggest investments in Midway system this year. So Changfeng Ocean World, previously we had two lovely belugas, and now those two belugas, they have been sent back to the sanctuary in Iceland. And the good news is those two belugas, they should have been released to the natural living environment. So that's definitely a good move from Merlin's perspective. But after that, because these two belugas used to be the stars for Changfeng Ocean World. So as next step, what we are going to launch a new product at Changfeng Ocean World at the end of this year or early next year to regain our appeal to the customers in the local market. The new product will be featuring a major IP partnership, as well as promoting our BRP value proposition, namely breed, rescue, and protect. So I think that will be a major new product launch for us as well. And we also have other plans to further upgrade the product at our MT brands, MT Shanghai, MT Beijing, and I think from audience perspective, they would love to see more, unique content. They like to be more immersive, or they will be able to interact with the product on site. So we also have plans for that as well.
I see. Okay. And then I guess you kind of touched on this, but to what extent obviously China Midway is part of the overall Midway, division within Merlin. How do you guys work together in terms of, sharing information, best practices, any, trends that you observe in one area of the world that can be applied to other areas?
Yeah, this is very true. So I think what we've experienced during this pandemic period is actually a very good testimony, to what you've asked just now. I think, throughout the period, China, we've shared our experiences with our global teams, and I think on the other hand, the regional and global team or central functions, they also supported China throughout this period. Speaking of this pandemic period, China is actually a few months ahead of our global peers, for good or bad. So we shared what we see here, and hopefully this could be some useful learnings elsewhere, and help other Merlin attractions to get better prepared. So, for example, the relatively slower recovery for the tourist brands, the need for the preschool kids, as well as the how do we put the hygiene standards at the first priority. I think all these, as well as the recovery speed after the second wave is potentially slower than the first wave. I think all of these are useful learnings for Merlin attractions elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, and part of the reason I asked that question is that from my perspective, China, it always seems like China's at the cutting edge in terms of attraction development and how people just interact with the attractions in general. I feel like there's been a lot of technology being deployed at these attractions that don't exist in other places in the world? And I wonder if there are any, emerging trends that you see that might be interesting to kind of like a larger audience in terms of how people are behaving or interacting or like demanding, I guess, from your attractions.
Yeah, I think speaking of that, we do see an increasing demand in terms of, so to speak, digitalization. I think, to be honest, this is probably the buzzword for every single attraction in the world. But I think on that one, maybe China, we don't have a legacy or historical burden on this, so we kind of started without thinking too much about, what we have done in the past, just a leap forward into the future. So I think on that one, we see the rising of, for example, the live streaming platform. So basically the KOLs, key opinion leaders, they can sell whatever they want to sell on their personal platform. Basically that's their like private sector traffic versus the traditional marketing that we have been doing, mostly appealing to the public sector traffic, for example, the OOH, the PR events. So I think that's number one. How do we make good use of those, riding on the trend or the switch from public sector traffic to private sector traffic? That's question number one. And secondly, I think for a lot of attractions in China right now, we are using the so to speak, the face recognition technology to enhance the operational efficiency. So that said, you don't need to even redeem a ticket. You just show your face at the entrance, and then you get in immediately. So I think that certainly requires a certain level of investment, but I think for some popular attractions that could greatly enhanced by the could greatly enhance the operational efficiency.
I see. I see. And so, you mentioned the virtual world. Do you see any, trends or anything on the horizon that would indicate maybe, a way to bridge the gap between the virtual world and kind of real life location-based entertainment? Because over the last few years, there's just been this huge rise in virtual activities. Whether it's live streaming or gaming, and it seems like the entertainment industry in general is kind of heading in that direction. But I wonder, is there a way that Merlin can kind of latch onto this trend, or is it something that you are ignoring altogether because there's always going to be a demand for LBE?
Yeah, I think what we are trying to do right now is to strike a right balance between these two. I think the virtual world is definitely a trend, right? With the support from technology and we could have better opportunity in terms of delivering better experience to the customers. But fundamentally, I think people still need something like concrete to feel, to touch, to embrace all the technology, all the change that the new technology has bring to us. So I think we are trying to deliver a more interactive or immersive on-site experience with the support of technology. So for example, we are introducing more and more wax plus figures, i.e. it's not like static wax figures in the past, it's figures enabled or empowered by new technology, so that when people come on site to enjoy the location-based entertainment or leisure time, they could still feel the latest trend in terms of technology, and they could truly enjoy it.
I see. Oh, interesting. Are there, any other trends in the, you know, attraction industry in general in China that you think are interesting, you know, worth highlighting?
Um, I think pretty much. Well, if there's one thing that I wanted to highlight is there is not like there won't be any overly emphasis about innovation. So I think the whole China attraction industry is catching up in a very quick speed. I think, you know, people putting a lot of money to build theme parks, people seeking after, chasing after, you know, great IPs to introduce those IPs to accommodate Chinese customers' demand. I think the overall China attraction industry, they are trying to do a lot of things and do a lot of new things in a new way. I think Merlin is a long established, you know, leading player in this particular industry. So I think there won't be too much that we can emphasize. Oh, there will never be. How should I put it? There shouldn't be too much from the innovative perspective that we should not be doing. You know, there are certain, we have very good products, we have very good IP, so we should take full advantage of it and ride on the innovative part to take Merlin business to another level in China.
I see. And so to that end, you know, whenever kind of this pandemic period ends, what is the future of Merlin in China, at least from your perspective?
Well, I definitely believe, you know, Merlin in China would have a, you know, bright future, not in terms of the number of attractions. Right now we have 12, maybe we can have 20, 30, or even 50. And then secondly, I think there is potential for a number of our new brands in China as well. Right now we have 6 brands, but Merlin, we do have a reservoir of brands globally. So I personally would see the potential market for some of those as well. And then thirdly, obviously will be, you know, how do we leverage our like historical or cutting edge experience in location-based entertainment industry to benefit the overall China attraction business, or to boost the development of the whole industry. That is also the area that Merlin could bring in a lot of value.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see. You know, you had mentioned just a while ago about the enormous volume of attraction development by your competitors, and you know, in a lot of the markets that you're present in, I imagine there is a lot of competition, and a lot of this competition probably is not very sustainable. But what is your, I guess, how is Merlin positioned against that level of competition? You know, in many cases, it's kind of just like a race to the bottom. So how does Merlin intend to, or how does Merlin deal with that now and intend to, you know, deal with it in the future?
I think the key word for Merlin here in this particular market is the China synergy. The synergy could be, you know, in all dimensions. We now have like 12 Midway attractions in China. So sometimes that give us the luxury of not simply competing, for example, simply on price. So I think the biggest noise in the market, or especially during difficult times, could be our Chinese counterpart. They tend to use promotion as the only initiative, which sometimes puts a lot of pressure on us as well. So I think the China synergy is the thing that we wanted to maximize or max out the impact. So we, for example, we do national campaigns across our attractions. We do like exclusive product for every single attraction to enhance our appeal to the customers, as well as we use this to, partner with we cooperate with different partners to fast track the recovery, to fast track the performance, so on and so forth. So I think that really we are even though we have 12 attractions, but we are one Merlin business. So that's the biggest advantage to us.
I see. Fantastic. Okay. Well, I think, that our time is running short. Are there any closing thoughts that you have, or pieces of advice you'd like to pass on to the audience?
Sure. I think when we talk about China, I think the normal impression would be always like, faster growth, rapid development, so on and so forth. I think the last thing that I want to highlight is definitely the power of team. So especially, from Merlin's perspective, I think what we've experienced during this challenging period is very, very powerful or thought-provoking, because when for Merlin, our company's organizational reason for being is actually to provide fabulous or incredible experiences to the customers. So when we do have a lot to live up to when it comes to how we treat our teams during this period. So I think we always put like people first, and when we talk about our people, the first reaction is always to first preserve rather than cut. I think this this helped us a lot during the recovery, and I think this would also be conducive to the long-term development in the future.
I see. Yeah, it seems like Merlin, with its scale and its brand, has a lot of advantages in China.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Wong.